Welcome to episode 5 of Power Play. I'm your host, Paul Browning, having had a career that spanned the globe and experienced the full spectrum of energy technologies. I'm here to bring you the hard truths of the energy transition. As I step into retirement, I'm using Power Play to travel the world with you, from the entrepreneurial west coast of North America to the vibrant energy markets of Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, describing an industry that's undergoing transformational change. Some feedback I got from previous episodes said that I should address the why behind my podcast. Why is this important to me? In Xi'an, I invited you to walk with me because I wanted you to see the daily life of locals as we travel around the world. But in Xi'an, I was a foreign tourist. Here in San Diego, I'm taking you on a local's journey. I was born and raised in America's Rust Belt, but I've called San Diego home for as long as I've lived anywhere else. So let's take the walk of a resident. Like about 60% of Californians, I'm blessed to live in a coastal community. I live in the quaint town of La Jolla, just a block from the beach, and my morning walk starts in the village coast, walking past seals that are sunning on Children's Beach, down to La Jolla Cove where hundreds of sea lions live, and then up along the cliffs where a lot of bird species nest, and finally down to La Jolla Shores Beach, where there's a great beach break that draws middle-aged surfers like me. This routine is my morning meditation, where I relish in nature's wonders and get some exercise while doing some of my best thinking. And this daily encounter with nature's wonder instills a deep urge in me to protect our natural world from human development and climate change. And although I'm an industrialist, a capitalist, and an energy transition entrepreneur, like many Californians, I'm also an environmentalist. But my environmentalism is also paired with an urgent sense that we need to move fast in the energy transition to beat the clock on climate change. So we started our first few episodes in Asia, the #1 carbon-emitting region in the world, and in the country of China, the #1 emitting country in the world. And now we're headed to North America, the #2 carbon-emitting region of the world, where we find the #2 carbon-emitting country in the world, the United States of America, along with the #11 emitter Canada and the #12 emitter Mexico. Carbon emissions peaked in North America in 2005, and you can see that the U.S. drove most of this reduction. Reduced carbon emissions in the U.S. since 2005 are almost entirely the result of retiring coal-fired power plants and replacing them with a much lower carbon combination of natural gas and renewable power generation. Note that in addition to falling carbon emissions during the past 2 decades, we've also seen very low load growth in the U.S. power sector. But this is changing rapidly. Utility after utility have in 2023 and 2024 substantially raised their load growth forecasts. There are 3 factors that are contributing to this. First, we're converting passenger vehicles from internal combustion engines to electric, driving demand for more electrical energy. Second, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law have pumped hundreds of billions of dollars into new computer chip and energy transition factories that are driving demand for energy and capacity. And finally, the exponential growth of artificial intelligence has greatly increased energy and capacity demand from power-hungry data centers. And meanwhile, we're retiring coal-fired power plants. So in addition to meeting all this load growth, we also need to replace the energy and the capacity that coal-fired power was generating. The result of this is that we now need to rapidly build new power generation and whatever transmission is required to get that new power to demand centers. Throughout my career, around the world, the predictable response to under-forecast power demand is to build more natural gas power generation. The reason is that gas turbine power plants can be built much faster than other power generation technologies. Plus, they can provide both energy and capacity, and they can be built close to demand so that you don't have to build a lot of new transmission. And in North America, where the fracking boom has made natural gas extraordinarily inexpensive, it's also a very affordable form of power with a lower carbon intensity than oil or coal-fired power. And in future episodes, I'll talk about how we can reduce the carbon intensity of natural gas power generation even further. So the U.S. power grid is going to have to move quickly, growing rapidly while simultaneously decarbonizing. But why are we having trouble moving as fast as we need to in the U.S.? Why were they so much faster than us in China? To explain what's happening requires delving into a bureaucratic labyrinth of government permitting, interconnect queues, and local opposition. And I feel like if I do that, I'll be losing subscribers by the second. So taking a page from Hollywood, which is just a 2-hour drive from here, and inspired by Margot Robbie in The Big Short, let's try something different to take on one of these issues. But here I am in a bubble bath to talk about NEPA. The National Environmental Policy Act was signed into law by President Richard Nixon in 1970 after being passed by a Democrat Congress. Initially, it was 5 pages long, and it had a very simple mandate that the federal government, anytime they take any major action, has to do a detailed environmental study and disclose it to the public. Environmentalists succeeded in court case after court case, using this new law, along with something called the Administrative Procedures Act, to get fossil fuel projects and other disfavored projects delayed due to incomplete studies. So in response, consultants started increasing the size of these studies to be thousands of pages and take many years to complete so that they could fight any court case that there was a claim that the study was incomplete. Oh, thank you, Janelle. Well, on a twist, these layers of court precedent and paperwork that were originally intended to slow fossil fuel projects are now being used to slow energy transition projects. By the way, the acronym for this new law is NEPA. So anytime you hear NEPA, then delay. In response to his support for the Inflation Reduction Act, Senator Joe Manchin cut a deal with the president and with Senate Leader Chuck Schumer that they would take up substantive permit reform after passing the IRA. Today, it's still stalled in Congress. Got it? Good. So we went into some detail on NEPA just to give you a flavor of what the challenge is. We'll spare you the further details on things like a maze of permitting and state laws, zoning codes, slow interconnect queues, and local opposition that face energy transition projects. NEPA may be the Magna Carta of the U.S. environmental movement, but it also stands as a potential impediment in our urgent race against climate change and global competition. The hard truth is that we need federal, state, and local officials to clear a path. We now have low-cost wind, solar, energy storage, and electrical vehicle technology. We have the factories to build it. We have the federal financial support to make it happen. Now, let's complete permitting and interconnect reform and release the hounds of the energy transition, rather than allowing NEPA study pages to pave the way to 2 degrees Celsius. In our next episode, we're going to take a different look at speed and explore the pace of change in the energy transition in California and Texas. And we'll also compare China's central planning with Silicon Valley's venture capital ecosystem. This spring, PowerPlay visits North America. And then we're going to spend our summer in Europe. Your suggestions are always welcome, and any serious, respectful comment will always receive a serious, respectful response. So please put your comments on my LinkedIn page or on my PowerPlay channel. And remember, we are all part of this pivotal energy transition. So let's take a walk together along Southern California's coast as we continue our global odyssey to understand the energy transition, bringing a new era for humanity and our planet. Let's go.